back to Black Motherhood Unspoken, where we have honest conversations about the parts of motherhood people don't always talk about. Today's guest is someone very special, my mother. She has witnessed me grow from daughter to woman to mother, and she has played an important role in supporting me through motherhood, especially during my postpartum journey. Today, we're talking about motherhood through generations, wisdom, sacrifice, and what Black mothers carry. This is my mom, Jennifer, and today we're having a conversation about the lessons, love, and legacy of motherhood. Thank you for being here on my platform today.
Thank you for having me, Shelby.
Let's talk about your motherhood journey. What was motherhood like for you when you were raising us?
Motherhood for me was a test. I'm the youngest of 14. I have 7 older sisters and 6 older brothers. And my mother was born in 1922. And so she was a midwife. And I would watch my mother care for my sisters as they came home from the hospital and the babies. And it was very rich. So when you and your sister came along, that was kind of like a test for me. You know, I wanted to make sure I remembered everything that I was taught and saw by my mother. And I wanted to make sure I did it right. But I learned later there's no book that says what to do, right or wrong. If I made a mistake, I did it. And I would try not to, do it again.
To piggyback off what you said, how you tried to watch your mom and get as much information from her by taking care of your sisters, and that information was rich. I think what was really rich when we had Kylie and that umbilical cord, it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. It was trying to fall off, but it wasn't time. It wasn't healed yet. And you said, Mama used to do something with a penny. And you said, I don't know, but I know who do. And we put Kylie in the car and we rode over to Aunt Gert's house. And you said, Gert, we need you to put Kylie and biblical cord back together because it's not. And I had never seen anything done like that.
Yes.
She took a rubber band and a penny,
Yes.
and that penny and that rubber band held that umbilical cord
Yes.
intact until it was time to fall off. And I think that is rich. Because
Yes.
that's not something that is taught. That's something
Yes.
that the hospital and the doctors is not going to tell you.
No, and that came from my mother being a midwife and working with what you had. You know, they weren't allowed to go to the hospital. They couldn't. It was discrimination back in 1922 when she was born. So even 10 years later in 1932 when she was 10 years old, the laws were still the same. So she got it from her mother, her grandmother, who were slaves. And it was just amazing how resilient those people were. And I was so thankful that my sister had that type of knowledge that we could call on her and say, hey, I remember you doing this and you saying this. Can you do this here? Can you do this for us? And she did it.
She did.
And that came by watching our mother do it. And it was a technique, if you will. She would have a band that she would put around the babies to make sure the navel would stay in. And she would put, every time you change the baby, which they do now, you put alcohol on it. But she did something with burnt flour. She would take burnt flour and put it on the pad and put it around the baby's midsection so the navel would be perfect. And it was. All 14 of us have perfect navels, as far as I know.
That was like surgery that day. I had never seen anything. Like, I'm gonna have to call Anchor. Be like, do you remember?
You remember?
What sacrifice did you make as a mom?
The biggest sacrifice that I made, and I remember you saying, Mama, I didn't know you had friends. I gave up my friends, again, my mother, she said, now you're a family woman and you have to be accountable, and you have to let your friends go. It's about your family now. So I had to build the family structure of mama, daddy, what we would do, put even setting the table to eat dinner. That's the family structure. And I had to show you and your sister, this is what family does. This is how we do it. Mm-hmm. So that was the biggest sacrifice, because I had a lot of friends. I made college friends, high school friends, and I'm very thankful for Facebook, because after y'all got to a certain age, I was able to reconnect through Facebook and social media and connect with a lot of my friends to let them know, hey, I'm still here.
I think we only knew your church friends.
Yes.
We seen them in church. So I think the real friend that I saw outside of a church friend was Miss Ladores.
Yes.
And I was like, who is this woman? Where did she come from? Like, I was like, I didn't know you had friends. And you was like, I got a lot of friends. And I'm like, the only one I know is Sister Kay and Sister Deborah.
Sister Deborah from church. Yeah.
The church friends.
Yep. The Ladores came along, and slowly the other ones, they acclimated in, and yeah.
You got a lot of friends.
Yeah, I do.
What was it like watching me become a mother?
Wow.
The first time, like with Kylie. What was it like watching me become a mother, and then what was it like watching me elevate from each child as their mom?
Oh my goodness, that's a deep one. Well, when you first got pregnant, I wondered, and I worried about how you would carry yourself when you walk down the hallway at school. And I remember watching you go into the school. You always had your head up, and you always walked in like you had your agenda together. Mm-hmm. And I knew the teachers were talking, and I knew the kids were talking and laughing about you and at you. But Shelby, you were so focused. And every day I said, did anybody say anything to you? And you would never tell me. I know somebody was ugly to you, but I don't know why you wouldn't tell me, but I do. I'm a mama.
That's funny you say that. Yesterday, the guest that I had on, we talked about teen pregnancy, because I was 16 and she was 19, and we talked about some of the things that people said. And I said, I had to go to school with a big belly and pregnant. I said, at least you were out of school. You didn't have to walk the hall of shame. And I had a previous math teacher get in my way in the hall, and she stopped me and she said, I am very disappointed in you. And I said, I did not tell my mom that. I said, surprise, now, because you're going to watch. But I said, I didn't tell my mom that because I know you would have went to that school.
Yes, ma'am.
And it would have been probably more than a conference had.
It would have.
And I never forget she did that to me.
It would have. Because how dare her? How dare her say that you made any mistake? She's not God. People make mistakes, but your baby wasn't a mistake. I remember you telling me, you said, Mama, I want my baby. Mm-hmm. And I said, you will have your baby. And so that's something that we as people, not as a people, but people period, need to stop doing. They need to stop acting like they're God, because the very thing she said to you, God will allow that to happen to her to let her see how that feels. It does not feel good. And it wasn't her place or anybody else's place to judge you. Things happen. When you got pregnant, I was working at the bank, and I had two ladies that I shared with your pregnancy, and they both told me that they got pregnant when they were 16. And to look at these women, they're so accomplished and so professional, you wouldn't even imagine. But she said, girls are girls and boys are boys. And when they like each other, things happen. And she was absolutely right. It wasn't that your father and I didn't raise you right. What is right and what is wrong? Mm-hmm. I saw that you liked that young man. And I talked to you, your father talked to you, and we took you through those cycles of, this is what's going to happen if that happens, this is what's going to happen if that happens, and you still did what you wanted to do. So I said, now, okay, it happened, and we're gonna roll with it.
Mhm.
And we did. We rolled with it. Kylie was born. It was beautiful, and Kylie was the village baby. Okay, so when Chloe came along, we had to get more structured. You know, like you being the mother, them knowing that you were the mother. Because with Kylie, Jessica and myself and my sisters, we just all loved Kylie. She was just the family baby. But then when Chloe came along, we had to get both of them more structured. Who was the mama, who was the grandmother. And I'll never forget, and Gert was crazy about Chloe. She loved both of them, but she was really crazy about Chloe. And I remember you came over to the house one day, you said, Mama and Gert won't give me my baby. I said, you better go get your baby. Them old folks to take your baby. And you went over there and you got your baby. And you had to let Chloe know that you were the mama.
Yeah.
You know, and you did that so well. You did. You were there. And you needed a break. And we gave you a break. But you wanted them to know that you were the mother.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of you for that. You made a lot of sacrifices that a lot of young ladies would have took advantage of, because you had my sisters, your aunts that loved you. They saw you going through school, not stopping. You focused, you're going to work. You know, they just wanted to help. But sometimes too much help can hurt. It can hinder. And that's when I began to pray. And you came in and you said, Mama, I'm taking my baby. I'm good. I'm staying in tonight or whatever. But you let Kylie and Chloe know that you were their mother. And I really enjoyed that. Thank you. It gave me more room to be a grandmother and be a good grandmother. And you know, there were times where I was overpowering and you would say, no, Mama, no, I want to do that. Let me do that. Let me plan that. And I said, you know what? You're right.
So what's the difference you see in me between the girls and Kobe, my parenting style, or motherhood from a teenager to an adult now?
I remember when Kobe got here, you said, Mama, I don't know if I can do this. I'm a girl, Mama. I said, just wait. I said, just wait. He is going to steal your heart. And that he did. But you know, Shelby, you have help with Kobe. Mm-hmm. You know, with the first two girls, it was just Kylie, Chloe, and us. You know, but when Kobe came along, you had met your husband. You know, you fallen in love, and he was like Thor. You know, so mature, so ready, and he did what he had to do. So when Kobe came along, you know, he was our first grandson, our only grandson right now. And everybody just took a deep breath and said, he's finally here, you know. But I saw you love, you know, it wasn't about being a boy's mama. Mm-hmm. It was about, this is my child and I love him. And Kobe taught you how to love him, if that makes sense. He did.
I'm getting emotional. Look, I got tissue down here
because
with the girls, my sacrifice was on go mode.
Yeah.
I worked full time at the hospital all the time, every other weekend, and I rotated holidays, and I missed a lot of holidays. And so I was just doing what I had to do to provide for them and take care of them. And so Kobe is like a fresher breath air because I'm more stable now.
Yes.
And I get to be here with him every step of the way.
Yes.
I get to enjoy my weekends with him. He's in sports. I get to go be there and do that with him. So it's kind of like a do-over a little bit.
Yes.
But I'm still happy that I'm catching the back end of the girls.
Yes.
So I needed Kobe to actually inhale this moment and say, this is what true motherhood is.
Yes.
I needed him.
Yeah. And he is a boy, so opposite to Track. So he's really giving you that love, you know, that Mama, I love you.
He does.
And, you know, he's always in your arms at church and, you know, in your chest. I love that. Yeah.
I love him.
I love him too.
Did becoming a mother yourself change the way you saw me as your daughter?
No. No. No, I saw you better than me. I always saw you and your sister better than me. I said, they're going to be better than me. And that's what parents are supposed to do. We're supposed to raise our children to be better than we are, you know? And that's what I got you ready for, to be greater, better than me. You know, don't be me, be more than me. And yeah.
You have always instilled that in us. And I love that. And I also love that you go back down memory lane and you tell us some things that you did and some things that, hey, this is what you learned from, this is what you don't do, and this is what the pastor talked about today at church. You saw mom and dad fall off a cliff. Yes. Why would you do the exact same thing? God is not going to be as graceful to you as to them because you know better.
You know better.
And I agree with that. Us as children, we should look at our parents and say, Mom and Daddy did this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do better.
Because you already see the outcome. You know, and it's not going to be different. And that's where the enemy comes in. He makes you think that, oh, you can do it different. Same outcome. Same outcome. So why would you do that thing that you've seen other people do and they didn't have good success at it? You know, and I'm so proud of this platform that you're doing. You're doing something different. We don't know where it's going to go, but hey, you're putting your foot in it, and we're doing it. And I'm like, okay, do it. And I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm your sister's biggest cheerleader. And that's what it's all about, helping you get to that point of, wow, I did it, you know? Instead of being on the fence, say, you know, I should have did that. I should have done it. I didn't do it. But you're doing it. And I get not to sit back and watch on the sidelines like I'm at a game, but I get to go behind the scenes, you know, and help out and support and engage behind the scenes. I don't mind being a behind the scenes girl, you know, because I know that I'm pushing you forward for my granddaughters, for my grandson. And, you know, they see their mama doing this and be more.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about generational wisdom. What is one lesson about motherhood you wish more women knew?
Oh, wow. The one lesson that I wish more women knew: get an older person in your life. Older women have lived, and you know, we see them at church and we see them at the anniversary. They just there. And we're, you know, I've seen the young ladies, they're scared to speak to them, or they just ignore them and walk on by. Make a relationship with those mature women. They have lived. And if you make a relationship and you say, look, I want to get to know you more, let's talk. You know, can we be friends? And those women will open the door of wisdom. That is one thing that I had growing up that a lot of young ladies didn't have. I had 7 older sisters, and even I had 2 brothers that I was very close to that would talk to me and tell me things. But my sisters, it was a point in time in my life where they were getting married, having families, and they were getting divorced. And they would move back home for a while to get themselves together. And they would always talk to me and tell me the truth. And I always remembered that going forward. Their voices would always be in the back of my mind. And I said, okay, I remember this. I remember that. I'm not going to do that. That is wonderful. And the other thing that I would remember is get your word. The Bible is basic instructions before leaving this earth. That word is your blueprint. That word is the path to your future. A lot of people will not read that book. They'll read every book. They'll read around the book, but they won't read that book. That book has so many Bible stories in it. The widow's oil, the Ethiopian eunuch, the story of David. Oh my gosh, how he prayed when he was in the caves and running away from King Saul. It's so many great stories of women. Esther, Ruth, how Ruth, mother-in-law was what is the word? Supporting her in engaging Boaz. It's a beautiful story of women getting together and chiming in together to do what was good for their future. Okay, because Ruth and Naomi, they were women with nothing but cousins. But what am I saying?
Their husband.
Nothing but they had inheritance in the bloodline, if you will, but they had no money. And so Naomi was so awesome in prepping Ruth to get Boaz the right way, okay? She didn't have Boaz come in the wrong way. Boaz had to do some things to be in order to get Ruth. So that's the one thing that I would tell young women to read. Tap into those stories and you'll get some insight. You'll get some how-to and go-to. I did. It really benefited me to read my Bible, and God will talk to you in those stories. He'll talk to you and you'll start having dreams and you'll wake up and say, why didn't I think of that? Because you needed God. You needed prayer. You need to talk to him and say, Lord, I need your help. And it's nobody else that can do this for me but you. Mm-hmm. I need you to help me. And those are the two things that I would really tell young ladies to tap into. You know, a lot of times we get so caught up in the man and what he doing when he ain't with me. You know what? Men are going to be men. And that's from the great words of my aunt that's passed on now. She said, baby, men don't change. Men are going to be men. She said, but what we have to do as women, we have to provide for our children. And so we have to do something different to get a different result because we've seen what's been done in the past. And I didn't want to chase. You know, I didn't want to chase a man. I wanted to be with my daughters and teach them what I knew. And then to see your craft, to see the gift that God gave you and your sister and build from that.
That was good. What advice would you give mothers that feel like they're failing?
Wow. There is no failing in motherhood. There's no failing. The advice that I would give you, drop down on your knees and say, God, help me. Help me in the name of Jesus. And then get some counseling. Counseling, I think, is one of the best things that ever happened to me and you and your sister. What do you think?
I agree. I still go to this day.
We got introduced to counseling when the girl's father went to the first war after 9/11. And this counselor, we had never been. We got introduced to it because I needed to know the signs of everything. If I was losing them, mental illness, all of that. So I signed us all up. And the counselor, he said, I'm going to talk to y'all individual and I'm going to bring you together. And so we talked individually for a week. And he gave me tools. He told me what he saw in the conversation that he had with my daughters. He gave me tools for them. He gave me A, B, and C. He said, if that don't work, try this. He talked to the girls. He gave them tools. We all came together and began to come together as a unit, as one. We started communicating better. You and your sister stopped fighting so much and the name calling and everything. And I was like, thank you, Jesus, for counseling. Counseling is the key. Now, every counselor, I'm not going to say every counselor is a good counselor. Get a counselor that fits you. If that counselor is not good, hey, call another counselor. Go to another. Get a counselor that you know the tools that are given to you is right for you. because every counselor, we've been to a lot of different counselors. And I said, this not working for me. And so it's not all the time the tools or me. Sometimes it is the counselor. And what is the other thing? I learned from documentaries. I like to watch a lot of documentaries. I like to read books. Raising my girls, they had to study, so I had to study too. I read books along with them. I remember your sister, she was into the Holocaust books in 9th grade through the 10th grade. So I would get whatever book she would read, I would read, and we would talk about it. And that's the thing, get busy into your children. Get busy on what they're into, their ideas, and what they like. And let that develop into what you're going to do tomorrow. Because my girls, they were all I had. And I was responsible and I was accountable. I read in the Bible where God said our children are not ours. We're shop steward over our children. And once we raise them in the Word of God, we have to give our children over to the Lord. And so when I read that, I said, God, these are your children. Give me what I need. Give me the wisdom to raise them. Give me the tools that I need from heaven to teach them your ways, to love you and to love and to know who you are and whose you are. And so I've always raised you and your sister, knowing that there was a God in heaven and his son name was Jesus Christ. And after John 3:16, it was a ... After John 3:16, you got to start talking to your children of whosoever. What does John 3:16 says? It's the sinner's prayer. So after the sinner's prayer, you got to start acclimating. You got to walk it like you talk it. And from that, each day is a new step. So don't give up. There's no such thing as failure. And now we have all these tools. You got social media. You got talk shows. You have a plethora of information. Get into that information. Don't even think you're failing. You just say, I got to do this a different way. And you say, come on, Jesus. I know you're with me. He's with us everywhere we go.
Do you remember I came to you crying one time and I said, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere because I was working at UAMS on the weekends and I was like, I'm tired of working weekends. I feel like it's never going to be over. And you said, this is just for a little while. This is only a test. And you told me your story about how you worked at Walmart for years and you missed weekends too. And you said God is taking you somewhere, but He wants you to remember where you're coming from.
And humility.
Yeah.
Humility. See, if you go from a job at UAMS and just, go to the next and then you're on the mountain, you're not going to look back and say, I went through the fire, I went through the storm. It's nothing for you to stand on. You need a foundation. And when you said that you felt like you weren't getting anywhere, baby, you was making your ground. You was making your steps known right then and there. And now you look back. Look how much you've grown. Look how much you have under your belt to say, okay, I've been here before. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. You're only there for a little while. See, if you don't go through anything, you're not gonna appreciate anything. If me and your father had given you everything, you wouldn't know nothing. We wouldn't be on this podcast. So the times that I had to watch you struggle, I cried. I did. I cried. There was the time, I don't know if I should tell this story. Are we being transparent?
I mean, we're having honest conversations. It's honest. It has.
So one night, remember when we were in the car and I saw the Band-Aid on your arm?
Yeah. I talked about me giving plasma.
And you said, Mom, I had to give plasma because I needed some gas. And I froze. And after you took me home, I fell in John's chest and I cried. And I said, John, I don't want her giving blood for money. I said, but if she don't, she ain't gonna get it. I don't want her weak. I want her strong. And I cried. I did. And I prayed for you. And God picked me up. He said, hey, she just gave it one time. She ain't gonna be doing this always. And I wiped my tears from my eyes and I thanked him. And it made me, for one moment, I felt like a bad mother, but I was the best mother for you at that moment. If I'd have given it to you, you never would have known how that felt. And there's a lot of us as mothers, that's our downfall. Every time our babies need, here you go, here you go, here you go, I had to pray that thing out and I had to cry. But I always called and check on you. And I just thank you for coming to me and talking to me. And there was a time where I didn't think you were listening, you and your sister. I said, go out there and talk to another woman. Just talk to another woman and see the advice that she gives. And you and your sister did. Y'all hooked up with older women and they would talk to y'all, and I thank God for that. I thank God that he opened the door, that a woman walked in y'all pathways, an older woman, to tell y'all the truth and not lie. Yeah. Because you used to always say, that's the same thing, Miss So. She said the same thing you said, Mama. She said the same thing you said. And I was like, thank you. So I got a lot of relief from that, of y'all talking to other people, older women, and getting confirmation from them. I didn't mind at all. Yeah. I didn't mind sharing you and your sister at all, because I know who I was in Christ. And I prayed and I asked God. I prayed for you, over you, and thank you for letting me anoint you and your family. I still come over periodically and do that, but now that, you're grown, I know that's what you're doing for your family. And prayer is the key. Faith unlocks the door. Mm-hmm. It is. It's true.
That was good. And I will say to the women that are watching, I know y'all see the glamorous pictures that I take of me and my family, but to the single moms, I can relate. Just because I haven't shared in the past doesn't mean I don't know what it's like. I have received the food stamps before. I have been on the public housing. I was given the plasma to receive money for gas. I have had my lights turned off before. I do know what struggle is when you're just trying to make it and you're trying to be everything for your children. And I want you all to know, give yourselves more grace. There's no rule book how to be a parent the right way. There is no right way, like my mom shared. If you know that you're doing what you can for you and your babies, that's good enough. If you know that you're giving them your best, your all, that's good enough.
And stay beautiful. Stay beautiful. Just because that person did not appreciate you or want you, that doesn't mean that you're dismissed. Keep yourself together. It's so many stores now that help you to be, you're going to be the way you look. If you look in the mirror and if you see oh, I love my hair, I love my makeup, it's a certain attitude that goes with that. And you'll feel better about yourself. And if you look good, you'll feel good and you'll act good. But it's one thing I want to share with y'all about when Shelby said she was on food stamps. She wasn't on food stamps for long. She did, when she filled out the application with Kylie, she came home one day, she said, Mama, I can't do this. She said, these people want to know my DNA. They want to know what time I used the bathroom. They want to know. And she said, I can't do this. I was very proud of my daughter for that. I was very proud of her. That's when I knew that she was a worker. And if it took hard work for her to reach her goals, she was going to do it. And I appreciated that. Not saying that, just because I get food stamps, I'm bad. No, you're not. No, you're not. But sometimes you're going to come up on a certain wall that you're going to know what you're made of. And you're going to say, this ain't for me. Some things, hey, if you can do it, do it. I'm not down in that. But for her, she was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to recertify anymore. I just want to wing it. And that's when me and her daddy and my sisters in the village, we stepped in and we helped. We did little by little. Money is tight for everyone. And it was more than money that we did. We looked at the need and we feel the need. And don't give up on people. If you pray, God will send somebody. It'll look like a person, but it will be an angel. They'll just come and drop stuff off at your front door. I've had that happen to me. They'll just pass and say, God told me to give you this. But you gotta have faith in that. If you, ain't nobody gonna do this. What we speak is what we're going to eat, okay? If you speak a positive word, positive things go out in the atmosphere and it comes back like a boomerang. But if you keep speaking negative things are going to continue to happen. And so, she talking about, it happens every time. But if you stop, take a deep breath and breathe and say, Lord, I'm going to try you on this. And in the book of Malachi, he wants us, he said, test me in this. He said, do this thing and see if I won't do this. And whatever that thing is, hey, pray first. Pray first and say, Lord, I'm waiting on you. I have faith in you. And what do you do in the meantime? Pick up that book. Pick up that book and find your situation in that book. If your situation is not in that book, you don't need to be doing that thing. And you don't need to be asking God for that thing. But anything that's good and positive, God will bring it to you in that book. He will give you a dream. I am a strong recipient of that. I've had dreams and I said, Father God, tell me what this was about. And by, I'm like, oh my God, that's what that was. That's what that was. And then I go into praying, Heavenly Father, I just thank you. I thank you. I thank you for the revelation. And that's how we made it. That's what we did. There was people, I'll never forget, you and your sister was in elementary school. And I was walking from the school, and one of the teachers, she caught me. She said, come here. My name was Welch at that time. She opened up her trunk of her car, and she gave me 2 big bags of clothes. And in the clothes, there was the dress to fit you and the dress to fit your sister. She said, I buy clothes for my baby and my sister's baby. They growing up together. And she said, these folks walking around here, all stuck up with their head in the air. She said, you walk around like you go to work. And she said, I want to bless you with this. Blessed me. And I was like, what? And the clothes, the little dresses came from Dillard's. I know labels. And Copper Key, that's Dillard's. Mm-hmm. And every dress you had, she had a dress for your sister. Y'all looked immaculate every Sunday for church. And I was like, God bless that woman. Bless her household. Bless her for, thank you for favor. Thank you for letting favor fall on us. That's how he blesses his people. He shows favor. So don't think that things won't happen to you. It's all here. It's all in your mind and in your heart.
And I will say, when God and other people see you trying, other people will chime in and they will help you too.
Yes.
They will.
And people can feel your attitude. They can feel. I was always full of gratitude. I was always full of thank yous, just full of humility. Because I know that people didn't have to do anything for me. They chose me. And I was so grateful for that. I was.
Well, in closing, Mother's Day is approaching, and I want to tell you happy Mother's Day. And I think you have done an exceptional job raising me and my sister. You have raised 2 strong women, and I can honestly say, God, not right now, don't take them now, but if something was to happen to you and Dad, I'm okay to stand on my own and continue raising my family. And I have that to thank you. Thank you for every lesson you have instilled in me. Thank you for the discipline. I can honestly say I've never been to jail. God, I don't ever want to go to jail. Ain't never been on nobody's roster. Never any legal problems.
No felonies.
Nothing. And I thank you. And I'm happy that we're at a point to where I've matured so much that you can actually take a breath yourself and actually be grandma.
Yes. And happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
You know, I'm going to tell this story and then we're going to go. When Shelby was 7 years old, she always wanted to open up a daycare, her and her cousin Jasmine. And she said, I'm going to have grandma garage and we're going to turn it into a daycare. I knew then that how much she loved kids. I knew then that that was going to be my baby to have the babies. And she just always loved kids. One Sunday, we all got in the car and Shelby got in the car with this baby. I said, Shelby, who baby is that? She said, oh, Mama, that's Sister so-and-so. I said, Sister who? I said, what? She said I could keep her, and Mama, she gonna come by and pick her up. What was that baby's name?
It was either Cecily.
Or
because we also had Sister Chanel baby too. We had Chrissy.
Kidnapping kids at the church, and I was like, what baby we have this Sunday? And she kept those babies. And she took care of those babies. And I was like, Lord, she took after my mother.
And I wrangled Kelsey in at one point. Because Daddy had never met Kelsey. And he came over to the house. He said, who baby is this? And now I got dog baby. I'm going to keep a baby.
She got 3 babies and she's still pulling in babies. So, you know, you truly have my mother's DNA in babies. My mother kept babies for a living. She loved to keep babies, and that spirit has fell on my daughter. But happy Mother Day. You are a bonus mother, and you're doing exceptional work. And I love to see your organized refrigerator where you have everybody chores. I wasn't that mother. And you know, it was a lot of times I made it up as we went along, but she is so organized, and you do this week, she's doing that next week. That wasn't me. We all did it at the same time. So, you know, I see the mother in you that I wanted to be, but I'm just not. And that goes back to, it's nothing you're going to do that's going to fail as long as you give love and you're there to show your children along the way. But happy Mother Day to you, my daughter.
Thank you, Mom. This conversation reminds us that motherhood is layered with sacrifices, beautiful and often unseen. Our mothers carrying things we may never fully understand until we become moms ourselves. Thank you for love, wisdom, and the foundation you gave me. I love you.
You're welcome. I love you too. Give me a kiss.
Mwah. Until next time.
Bye-bye.